What's up, Token Metrics family? Still in Love, host of Crypto Hot Seat on the Token Metrics YouTube channel. As you probably know by now, we're releasing a bunch of old episodes of the show to you that have never been on YouTube before as our little holiday gift to you. So we want to thank you for being a subscriber. We want to thank you for being a Token Metrics customer. And a way of showing our gratitude, we're going to let you see some stuff that has kind of been buried before. So what you're about to watch is an interview between me and Mr. Bradley Tusk. Bradley Tusk is a businessman, venture capitalist, political strategist. He's got a finger in many different pies, and one of them is crypto, and we're going to talk all about it. So check out this episode of Crypto Hot Seat between me and Bradley Tusk. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. You're watching another episode of Crypto Hot Seat, the only interview show that matters in crypto. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, the world is changing. Politics affects technology, technology affects money, and of course, money affects politics. We're joined today by a guy who's uniquely positioned to comment on all three of these things. I want to introduce Mr. Bradley Tusk of a number of ventures. Bradley, you're no one thing. You're a multifaceted creature.
I have a very short attention span, and so the only way for me to sort of keep myself out of trouble is just to do a lot of things at once.
Well, I'd like to start by talking a little bit about your crypto experience. You are an investor in Coinbase. Sure. I caught an op-ed by you last month in which you basically talked about the U.S. having a prime opportunity for regulating crypto, quote unquote, the right way. So to put all of that to a question, this opportunity seems to be the operative word here, because I look at the way China is interacting with crypto, and it seems like, me as an unashamed, proud American, we have like a real opportunity to own the story and perhaps show the world the way this quote unquote should go. Yes,
100%. Look, I think everyone who is watching this understands why China banned crypto. It's a threat, and it's an authoritarian society, so they have the ability to shut down any threat they want. And so, okay, got it, makes sense, right? But it's also creates a huge opportunity for the U.S. because we could really be the global home of crypto. Like, yes, crypto is by definition a sovereignless currency, but the jobs around it, the mining, the trading, the exchanges, everything else still have to physically be somewhere. And there's no real reason they couldn't be in the U.S. And if the U.S. government were to look at this as an opportunity to create jobs in a new industry, rather than just something that's supposed to try to regulate out of existence, it could be incredible. So, it requires us having faith in politicians, which is hard to do these days. But there really is a moment, there really is an opportunity. And while odds are our regulators and politicians will blow it, maybe they
will. Well, speaking of that op-ed that I caught, you absolutely name-checked the SEC as being one body that could regulate crypto, but you were very clear that there was just a potential here. You didn't seem to say like the SEC absolutely should be the body that regulates this. Is that an indirect way of calling for a new crypto-specific regulatory agency?
Well, so I would love that. But I'm not that ambitious in the sense that sure, we could propose that, we could set it up for them. The reality, especially of this administration, and I voted for the president, but he's still a very old man. Reality of this particular administration really being on the cutting edge of crypto to me seems unlikely. So really, look, yes, that would be awesome. But even to take a step back, what I would like to see is even just a world where there's some rational regulatory framework and approach to cryptocurrency, right? Because right now, it's just whatever stuff does happen, it feels totally random. It's like some reporter or someone tweeted or something called about something, and they're like, oh, yeah, this issue. And then they go out and say, Coinbase, you can't lend or whatever it is, right? The only thing, look, the thing that I think that they've done reasonably well that is necessary is kind of cracking down on fraudulent ICOs. I think for the market to work, there needs to be a governmental body or multiple governmental bodies that are trying to protect consumers from that. I would imagine most of us would agree on that. But beyond that, whether it's taxation or registration or anything else, you got to give people the rules, right? Like when Coinbase had their dispute, with the SEC like a month ago, I felt kind of bad for Coinbase because all they're really saying is like, we don't even know what we are allowed or not allowed to do because you won't tell us. And it's unreasonable for the government to say like, yes, tax-paying business, We may throw you in jail or punish you for something, but we won't tell you what's legal or not. I mean, that's crazy. So at the very least, the SEC has to say, here's a basic regulatory framework for crypto. Here's how we're going to tax it. And I would argue just tax it like we tax everything else. So if it's capital gains, tax it as capital gains. It's regular income, tax as regular income. But don't come up with a whole separate taxation scheme for
treat
it.
crypto like stocks, for example.
Yeah. I think so. Look, I don't know if this is the way that you've been thinking about it or not, but the way I've been thinking about crypto lately is it really almost becomes a binary thing where in countries like the US, it's an asset class, right? People are buying it as investors because they believe inherently in the underlying mission and the possibilities. And then in other countries, like you look at what El Salvador is doing, I think it could function as a true currency and be a lot more stable than what a lot of countries have. So, I see a world where maybe you have in less stable economies, crypto being the actual main currency used by the people. And in more stable economies, maybe there's some amount of commerce happening with crypto, but it's more of an asset class that people are buying.
Gotcha. Well, if at the risk of prying, sir, I'm dying to know what it's like to be an early investor in Coinbase. Could you speak in general about what that's all like?
It's pretty good. yeah, it was pretty good. I have to say, I got really lucky. So I didn't start off in tech. My career started off in government and politics. So I was Mike Bloomberg's campaign manager, ran for mayor. I was the deputy governor of Illinois. I was Chuck Schumer's communications director in the U.S. Senate. And so I didn't really know that much about technology, and I pivoted into it by accident. If you like Uber or not like Uber, either way, I'm the guy that legalized Uber. So I ran all of the campaigns around the U.S. to make ride sharing legal. So you can either love me or hate me for that. But either way, that was how I pivoted into tech, and then did it again with Clear to get them at the airports, and then finally realized, hey, there's an opportunity here at that nexus of technology and regulation to really become a better investor than people are doing right now. And that's how I started my venture capital fund. And once we kind of got up and running and started, making some moves, had some successful on companies like Roman or Coinbase or Lemonade or FanDuel, and we started getting a little bit of a reputation, the perception was, oh, these are the regulatory guys. And if we want to look like we're taking regulation seriously, let's have them in the round. And so we got invited into, it was a Series D for Coinbase. It wasn't super early. And it was, I kind of said, great, what do you need me to do for you politically? Because what we tend to do is solve the political problems of our portfolio companies. And they were like, no, we just want to use your name. We think it looks good. And I was like, awesome. So, so I have to say, as someone whose last name is Tusk, and growing up, kids always changing it to Tush or something like that. It was the first time where I was like, wow, this is
I got you. All right, very good, very good. Well, yeah, when I say early investor, I'm talking about like pre-IPO, right? So goobers like me who aren't accredited, we're buying in on IPO day. I'm just so curious. You're behind a silky red curtain in some respects.
Well, and typically even further behind it, because we are generally early stage investors. So we invest really in seed and Series A deals typically. And that could be whether it's in Circle or Coinbase. We were in a company called Radar Relay in the crypto space. We are in an NFT company called Dibs. So yeah, I mean, and the purpose for us is to invest early and then typically to go out there and actually solve whatever regulatory challenges are facing our portfolio companies. And that's really what allows them hopefully to grow and scale.
Gotcha. What would you attribute? I don't know exactly what to call it. Let's call it inaction or utter lack of clarity from the regulatory bodies. Where does that come from for crypto? Why is the SEC and related bodies, why are they so hesitant to say absolutely yes, this is the way things are going to go?
Yeah, so there's really two reasons for that. The first is almost by definition, every new technology is effectively not covered by the law, because if the bureaucrats who write the laws could think of the technologies and build companies around it, they'd be tech entrepreneurs and not bureaucrats. So almost always anything we invest in is a little bit, at least in a gray area, because it's new. And then on top of that, the reason why I think there's been a real challenge is there's just not a political constituency yet for crypto. And I know there's been a few efforts, and I think the Blockchain Association is pretty good, and some companies have made a few forays here or there. But overall, the simple rule of politics that I live by is every policy output is the result of a political input. Every decision is made to benefit someone's reelection or their next campaign and nothing else. And if you can't impact the next election, and keep in mind, when we say elections, it really means primaries because of gerrymandering. Almost every election in this country is decided in the primary. If you don't have a presence in that, they don't take you seriously. And right now, the crypto community does not have any sort of meaningful political presence. And as a result,
Gotcha.
it gets a short shrift on regulation.
I don't want to ask you to talk outside of school, but what do you make of some of these outspoken senators? I'll use Cynthia Lummis as an example, someone who's very proud to be kind of out there as a crypto senator. Is that all for show? Is there substance there? Is there moment? Go ahead.
Oh, no, not at all. I was talking to a member of the House this morning, actually, about a crypto provision in the infrastructure bill. And, he was saying the same thing. He's like, I want to be the crypto member of the House. So I think a lot of it comes down to age and worldview. People who are a little more innovative, a little more tech savvy and friendly, people who understand that social norms change over time. I think they can get their head around crypto. And if you can get your head around it, especially given the economic opportunity that's presents itself here in the United States, if you're a United States senator, you're a United States congressman, you should be all for it, right? And so I think that it's great that there is an emerging class of politicians who do support this and want to get there. But at the same time, you can't just put all your eggs in the basket of a couple of senators or a couple of House members and say, take care of us, right? You've got to build a real political operation where people fear you and they believe that you can impact their next election. And when that's the case, they will do what you want.
Gotcha. Well, speaking of changing norms, I'd love to talk a little bit about your organization's efforts to kind of, I don't know if you want to do away with the voting booth or maybe turn your mobile phone into a new kind of voting booth. But why hasn't this happened yet? Why is mobile voting? Why does it take such a push? Why does it take your money, basically, to help get this idea out there?
Everyone who's currently in power has no interest in losing power. And so if you look at the way our elections work right now, like I said a minute ago, only the primaries matter, and turnout in the typical primary is 10 to 15%. So what that usually means is either the most ideological on the left or the right, or special interests who really have the ability to move money and votes in a low turnout election. They're the ones who ultimately really call the shots. Because if let's say you're a Republican congressman from Florida, and by the way, I'm an independent, so I don't like either party. So if you think I'm picking on your party, I probably am.
Fair enough.
But let's say you're a Republican congressman from Florida. There's a shooting at a Walmart or a church or a school, whatever it is. And there's all the hopes and prayers and thoughts and vigils and calls for an assault weapon ban. Now, you as that congressman probably know intellectually that it's insane that someone could walk into a store and walk out with an AK-47, right? In what world does that possibly make any sense? But you also know this. Turnout in your next primary is 12%. NRA members make up half of that 12%. So therefore, if you were to vote for an assault weapons ban, you would be voted out in the next primary. So what do? You vote against it. And by the way, that's true on both sides of the aisle, but everyone's effectively following the politics to keep them in office. And as a result, nothing gets done. And so the reason why I started getting into blockchain voting is, when I ran all those campaigns to legalize Uber and ride sharing, the way that we won, and at the time, we were this tiny little Series A startup, and the taxi industry was pretty big and powerful. And the way that we beat them was that we were able to turn our customers into political advocates. Through the app, we were able to mobilize people to email, tweet, text, in some way tell their relevant local elected officials, I want this thing, don't take it away from me. And over a period of time, a couple of million people did that, and that's how we won. So I remember thinking at the time, like, wow, if we could vote this way, it would be incredible. And then as blockchain technology kind of kept improving and improving, we started rolling it out. And so starting in 2018, we started in the state of West Virginia, where it was possible for deployed military, people who are stationed overseas, to vote in that year's primary.
I remember this. I was going to ask you about West Virginia.
Yeah, we funded it.
So that was you. That was you
us.
3 years ago.
That was
Tremendous.
So
Tremendous.
We have since funded 20 different elections across 7 different states, and a real interesting mix of states. Some are very red, like South Carolina and Utah, and West Virginia, and some are very blue, like Oregon and Washington and Colorado. But either way, it's been possible now for people either deployed military or people with disabilities in some of those states to vote on their phone over the blockchain. And so far, so good. We've done 20 elections. The National Cybersecurity Center has independently audited all 20 of them. All have come back clean. Turnout average has doubled. And you may have seen in the last few weeks, we announced a $10 million grant program out of my foundation to build new mobile voting technology that can really address any concerns that cybersecurity experts have. So they can't use the excuse of, oh, we can't do mobile voting because it's not safe. I want to take that out of the equation completely and then give the people who are opposing it, no way other than basically saying, I don't want to lose my power. But ultimately, the people who are listening to this right now or watching us, the way we're going to make it happen is I need all of you to demand it, right? When the time comes. Like, I'm in a position to pay for a lot of it, to pay for jurisdictions to have these elections, and I'll pick up the cost of administering the election, to pay for the new technology, to light a spark. But, I can't take down the status quo of the U.S. political system by myself. And so, this is really going to work if everyone who believes in crypto and everyone believes in blockchain and everyone just believes in technology and the internet says, this is absurd. We should be able to vote this way. And once that happens, we'll win the right to do it. And once we win the right to do it, turnout goes up and all of the political incentives shift from getting nothing done, because right now you're just worried about the base and offending them, to pushing everything towards the middle and getting a lot of things done. And so to me, this is blockchain voting is the way to be in a position to solve climate change, hunger, education, healthcare, infrastructure, immigration, guns, whatever issue you want. You need members of Congress, members of state legislatures, members of city council to be politically incentivized to want to get things done. And that means you have to have much higher turnout. It's only going to happen on people's phones.
Gotcha.
And so, and we wouldn't get rid of the voting machines. I just think we would just create another option for people to use to vote. And I think over time it would become pretty popular.
Are there any countries around the world that have maybe mobile voting programs that you admire?
Yeah.
Who does
Estonia,
as well?
which probably won't surprise you. Estonia does it
Estonia,
well.
okay. Interesting.
Yeah, not surprised. Yeah, so they
got e-residency and everything.
Well. Yeah, they're really fantastic. I've spent some time talking to some of the different people there, and it's incredibly impressive. So now, look, it's a very, very small country, and they really kind of got out early on this thing, and they're, it's easier in a small, homogenous country than it is in a big, diverse melting pot like the U.S. Mm-hmm. But nonetheless, there is precedent for it. And there's now precedent, like I said, in 20 different U.S. elections because we keep proving it over and over again. So our hope is that the technology will be built kind of towards the end of 22 or early 2023. There's a group at Berkeley called the Standards Working Group, led by former Homeland Security Secretary John Napolitano, that's developing the standards for how mobile voting should work. The technology we built will meet those standards, and then hopefully we can start rolling it out.
I want to change gears ever so slightly away from crypto and talk more about politics and technology without the blockchain element.
Sure.
What was your experience of the Facebook whistleblower news? I mean, we used to talk about too big to fail in the context of banks. Now it seems like too big to fail mostly applies to large technology companies.
Yeah. So yes and no. So on one hand, you could look at it and say, bad thing after bad thing comes out about Facebook and they never change and nothing really changes. Therefore, they're impervious to any sort of punishment. Mm-hmm. The other way to look at it is to say, they actually face a tremendous amount of political risk in 4 different areas. So one, antitrust, right? A lot of people would argue that Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp should be 3 different companies, not one company. 2, privacy. In Europe, there's GDPR, which is the privacy framework. In California, there's something called the CCPA, but there's no U.S. national privacy framework, but there could be. And if there were, that could meaningfully limit Facebook's revenue because all of their money is made through ad targeting. And if they say you can't use these sources of data to target ads, it really scales them back. The third is legal immunity. So there's this law called the Telecommunications Decency Act, and there's a section called Section 230, which is really important because it makes platforms like Facebook and Twitter and Snap legally immune for any of the content posted on there. So you could post things about me that are clearly slanderous or libelous. I could sue you, but I can't sue Facebook right now. Both parties have called for the repeal of Section 230, which would then require companies like Facebook to be much more sophisticated and put a lot more effort into how they try to moderate content and keep the internet from turning so toxic. And so that's more. And then the fourth is Libra, which is Facebook's payment system that they need congressional approval and Washington's approval to roll out. And I think the reason why they have Libra is they recognize that at some point there are going to be privacy restrictions. They're going to lose some of their ad-based revenue and need to make it up somewhere else. And that's where Libra comes in. So while Facebook, on one hand, hasn't really paid any significant price for its behavior, on the other hand, they're facing a lot of risks. And I think that if they don't start to change the way they think about government and politics and media and just the public in general, I think ultimately they're going to pay the price here. I mean, if I were Facebook, I would do a few things. One is I would apologize, and not this like Zuckerberg, one hand behind his back with his fingers crossed, smirking at members of Congress apology. Like really like, hey, look, we invented something that we think is pretty amazing. 3 billion people use it. So clearly, we're onto something. At the same time, the internet's new, Facebook is new, and we're figuring it all out as we go along. And rather than us deciding we know everything, we don't. And we've gotten some things wrong, and we're sorry. And we'd like to work with government, with regulators, with academics to figure these things out. And that would do two things. One, the people would just feel better. And two, it's actually politically smart because they would start to shift the blame. If there were some big multilateral panel dealing with content moderation, then whenever something stupid somehow got all the way through and ended up in the newspaper, Facebook could blame the government. They could blame the regulators. So that's number one. The other thing they need to do is just be honest about the business model, right? I really, really believe that people can accept the fact that if you want to be able to share photos of your cat and track down your best friend from the 8th grade or whatever it is and not have to pay for it, there's some cost to you, right? Facebook is a private company. It has to make money. And the cost is your data is monetized and ads are targeted at you. Fine. And then Facebook can say, look, we're a business. We got to make money. So we provide the service for free. Here's how we pay for it. And if you don't want us to monetize your data, you can pay me a $20 a month subscription or whatever the cost is. And you won't have ads, right? And this is all very doable. And I think for some reason, Facebook just insists on pretending that like everything's free and nothing is monetized. Nobody believes them. And at this point, they've alienated the left, the right, the center. So I really think they have to rethink their entire strategy here.
Yeah. Well, I expect you're the kind of guy, if you called Mark Zuckerberg, he'd take that call.
Maybe. He might tell me to go fuck myself. We'll see. Am I allowed to curse on here? Yeah. All right.
Well, Bradley, thank you very much for sharing your time and expertise with us. Really appreciate having you on the show.
Yeah. Thanks.
Bradley Tusk is a venture capitalist, political strategist, philanthropist, and he does a little bit of writing on the side. If you are interested in his mobile voting initiative, check out mobilevoting.org. Bradley, thanks again.
Dylan, thanks for having me.